Now, the harm that is caused from this is suicide, is particularly with veterans.
Yeah.
And I recognize this myself as a veteran, having served my country to defend our Constitution, and then to come back here and find judges and attorneys who violate protected rights as though they're nothing. To me, that's no less than spitting on the corpses and the broken bodies of the men and women who have sacrificed for this country.
And using their service against you. You know, the people that, well, he's got PTSD, or, he was a killer over there because that's what his government sent him to do. And I mean, a lot of the people, they said, I'm serving my country. These are the orders that I was given to do, to fight, to defend my country, whatever it may be. And it gets used against them continually in court, like somehow you're a monster now.
And this is a huge problem, particularly with veterans, because they thought that they were defending our Constitution. When they come back here and find that the rights that are stated in our Constitution are worth less than the paper that they're written on.
Absolutely.
And so we have a huge problem with veteran suicides who come back and they lose their children, they're denied justice in court, their disability benefits, if they've been injured overseas, are seized by the courts.
Right.
And used, and the states are taking a cut of that money
right.
before the child support gets to the other spouse.
Right.
In many states, that's a huge problem. So we've got a huge problem of suicides that result out of those. We have problems with vigilante justice now.
Yeah.
You've got a shootout on the courtroom steps in Chicago. You've got some guy who went on a rampage down in Arizona and killed 8 people. Because of this vexatious litigation and this denial of justice. Substance abuse. When you go through this, people come home after these corrupt proceedings and they sit in the dark alone without their children.
Right. And
they start drinking, or they start taking prescribed medications, or in some cases illegal substance, and then they become addicted to it. Their PST, these symptoms of rape that we talked about earlier, are so powerful that they can hardly function in their jobs anymore.
Yeah.
And so it is destroying the fabric of our nation with this vexatious litigation and these crimes committed by judges and attorneys.
And to take this a little bit further as well, I've talked with veterans that have said, my veteran friends cannot afford all of these support orders and stuff like that. They are now going to places where they can sell drugs, whatever, because they have to make their payments or be incarcerated, and they can't make it off of what they're doing. So they end up going into activities that we would frown upon, and we'd say, we need to clean up the streets from these people. The very government that is is the causation for these activities is now going to sit in judgment of them, and will never look at the fact that they have a responsibility for the situation that has been created. We've created the problem, and now we're going to magically come in and solve the problem. If they were to stay out of it to begin with, or to limit themselves, we could have so many of these problems dealt with. And when you talk about healing to the nation, healing the families, the biggest, I think one of the biggest problems that we have is government policy that destroys families.
To that point, this is an exact... This is an executive order from President Trump, and it talks about human rights abuse and corruption, which is exactly what we're talking about, are we not? With this corruption, it's human rights violations when your children are taken wrongfully on unsupported allegations in these CPS cases, or just a simple divorce case. Where one parent is alienated from the other parent, many times based on false or unsupported allegations.
Right.
So President Trump's executive order, human rights abuse and corruption undermine the values that form an essential foundation of stable, secure, and functioning societies, have devastating impacts on individuals, weaken democratic institutions, degrade rule of law, perpetuate violent conflicts, facilitate the activities of dangerous persons, and undermine economic markets.
Wow.
That is a succinct and clear statement as to what the problem is with this corruption of our courts, with lawyers and judges colluding to deprive rights, and colluding to extort people under color of law, engaging in this vexatious litigation. That's exactly it. Undermine the values that form stable, secure, and functioning societies. It is essential to a society to have fair due process. It's the only clause that's stated twice in our federal constitution.
Right.
And it's stated in every constitution that we have a right to due course of law
Right.
or due process of law.
Right.
Devastating acts impact on individuals. We just talked about that. It causes suicide, it causes substance abuse, it creates such mental anguish, PTSD symptoms, same symptoms of a rape victim, and they can't function in the workplace anymore. It weakens democratic institutions. I would have used Republican institutions
Right.
in that place, because we are a republic, we are not a democracy. It degrades rule of law. Exactly, because perjury statutes that we talked about are no longer enforced.
Yeah, yeah.
Perpetuate violent conflicts, like I was talking about, where they're having a shootout
Shootouts on the court.
in these courtrooms.
Yeah.
Had a kid shot in a courtroom, 16-year-old boy, because these judges can't keep control of their courtrooms because they've got so much corruption going on. Facilitates the activities of dangerous people, like Judge Casey Moreland here in Tennessee, that bribed the cop to plant drugs on a witness against him, and undermine economic markets. And that undermine economic markets is a financial argument. As a CPA, you know, I look at this problem. When you attack a large demographic of a society, and with half of the people in this country getting divorced, with CPS becoming involved in so many cases, it represents about 50% of the population is affected by this. That's a large segment of the population.
Directly affected, because
And-
indirectly affected, you have a much larger population. But go ahead.
Yeah, and so, well, and I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
So when you go in there and you financially devastate, because when you get into a divorce case, for example, both attorneys know exactly how much money each party has.
Right.
Down to the penny.
Right.
They know everything that you have. And so they decide how much money are we going to take from them in this divorce case. How long are we going to drag this out? How much can we bleed them? And of course, life savings are depleted. College funds are depleted. So when you talk about the ancillary effects with that, when you financially devastate the family unit, they can no longer provide for their children the way that they once were able to. And so that affects their ability to provide for them as they go on into their college years.
Right.
And then you've got, because that happens, then these students, or these young people, have to take out student loans. Now they're carrying a debt load so that they can't provide for the next generation after them.
Yeah.
And so this perpetuates. Now, not only that, but these corrupt proceedings, they destroy businesses. And when with these ridiculous, unfounded lawsuits that we see today going in there.
Right.
You know, we talk about new torts. Here's a perfect example. California enacted a 5-hour meal break rule. And so it says if a worker doesn't take a meal break in 5 hours, or the employer doesn't provide them time to take a meal break in 5 hours, then they get an hour of their wage. And if it happens a lot, they may have to pay a penalty to the state. Now here's the problem, is that wasn't the people of California saying, I need a meal break in 5 hours. That was Joe Attorney sitting down with Billy Bob legislator saying, I need a new product line that I can sue businesses for. That's exactly what that statute was about. It wasn't about providing meal breaks. Nobody's complaining about that.
Yeah.
We've been getting along fine in this country without statutes like that.
Yeah.
And it's on the Chamber of Commerce website for California. That statute has resulted in a ridiculous amount of litigation. Companies are paying millions and millions of dollars of class action suits based on that 5-hour meal break rule. And the only ones that are getting any money out of this are the attorneys. It is incredible. Now, those companies that are paying out these millions of dollars, they no longer have money to bonus their employees. They no longer have money to invest in growth. And so the attorneys are getting paid, but you're harming the state because those businesses would be paying state tax on their income.
Right.
But they can't do that anymore. Or if they were bonusing or increasing compensation for their employees, then those employees would be spending
Right.
and creating tax revenue
Right.
and sales tax revenue for
Right.
the state.
Right.
So the state's cutting off its own arm.
Yeah.
And this is what's happening across this country.
Yeah.
Is these attorneys and judges are getting in there and legislating for these things. So this problem with corruption in our courts and in our legislatures, it is profound.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about in a minute how to fix this problem, and how we're going to fix this problem is through petitions of remonstrance. So in the next segment, we're going to run through what is a petition of remonstrance and how is it done.
Okay, that sounds great.